welcome to Smiling Through the Tears. My name is Christina, and I am so excited. My daughter Ashley is going to be joining me tonight, and we are going to be talking about scars. We all have them. Scars symbolize that life is full of pain and suffering. If you are a human, you are definitely, without doubt, experienced one of these, if not all of them. Physical, emotional, spiritual, or mental scars. Physical scars are reminders of an event that took place in your life. You can look at the scar and instantly be taken back to the time and place. It will always be a reminder of the pain you experienced. Every scar has a story. What stories do your scars hold? I remember in 2019 getting very sick. I had a fever of 104 for 4 months. The doctors didn't know what was causing it, and I had every test that there was. There was still no answers until I finally went and got a sonogram, and they found a golf-sized tumor on one of my ovaries. However, that was not the result of what was causing the fevers, but because of that, the doctor recommended that I get a hysterectomy. So I made an appointment, and I went in and had a hysterectomy, and when I went in, they said it would take 1 to 2 hours for the hysterectomy, and I ended up being in surgery for 5 hours. And my loved ones thought that either I had died or I had maybe something more extensive like cancer, which that's exactly what I thought was wrong because I was so sick for so very long. And I struggled to even get up every day and go to work. So when I went into the surgery and I came out, the doctor informed me that I had an infection in my fallopian tubes. And he was surprised that having that for so many months that I didn't end up getting sepsis. And it was a miracle that I actually survived as long as I did with an infection like that in my body. And so I am so thankful that I followed through and went and got the hysterectomy. But they did laser surgery, but I do have tiny scars there. And every time I see those, it's a constant reminder of the pain that I had and the experience that I had and the surgery and all those things. And if it wasn't for the pain and the fever, I would have probably, with most certainty, died. Pain can be our friend. It can alert us of a problem. If we don't have physical pain, we could miss a serious illness. Sometimes our scars are a reminder of how close we were to death. And those scars certainly remind me of that. The same holds true for heartache. Heartache can be a sign that maybe we are not being treated in a way that is acceptable or right. It can be an indicator to end a relationship or a situation. Our scars actually testify to brokenness. Jesus' scars testify to his redemption, and they will remain forever. What was the redemption of his scars? He saved us from sin, and he was an atonement for our sins. As a result of his death and resurrection, we as Christians are released from bondage of sin and death. And as a Christian, we have the hope of being in heaven with him for eternity. Scars are a symbol of our trials, battles, growth, and triumphs. Ashley, have you ever experienced any of or all of these?
Thank you for having me, by the way, tonight.
Of course.
Of course I have, because I think we all have, like you said, we've all have scars and pains that we can look back on. And first, I think of just real tiny scars as a child growing up was my chin. Remember, I fell down the steps and I busted my chin open.
Yes.
And I got stitches in my chin. And there's a reminder there as a young child of your scars remind you of you can heal. You know, that there is a time that your dad and your mom comforted you in that moment. And the same with do you remember Dad's dirt bike?
Yes.
And I burnt my ankle on that. I remember it burning so bad and rubbing my leg on the grass because it was so hot, and it was the only thing that cooled the burn down. And I just remember as a kid how painful that felt, you know, the burn, my chin, all those things. And those are just small scars in the scheme of, you know, a big, long life. And as a child, you're getting comforted. And you look back, I still have the scar on my ankle, my chin too, actually. I have that little line on my chin, and I look at it and I think I was healed. You know, it's a reminder that you are healed. And even more amazing is the scars you go through as you grow up. And the other scars I encountered, which I'll get into, God's the one that heals you. And so when you look back on those scars, it becomes a reminder of his faithfulness to you through those scars, and that he is faithful. So if you go through pain again, each time you go through it, he's going to comfort me. And those scars remind me that he's also going to heal me.
Yes.
And they can be a reminder of pain, which can be rough too. But those are my physical pains as a child. And then as I grew and walked through a bad relationship that I should never have been in, that's a scar that actually changed directions in my life as well. It leads you to God. I put too much dependence on how another person made me feel and ended up having 2 miscarriages. That was because I didn't trust God enough. And I allowed someone to speak into my life that didn't speak life into me. And that did leave scars because he drove me away from my family. I remember me and you had a rough relationship at the time because you saw...
Because I wanted to hurt him.
You saw the pain. And I think, too, in my mind, it was like the more people... I had learned for myself, and the more people did that, I rebelled against it. Like, I can prove that I can make this work, and I'll prove, that God can make good out of it. But instead, I was shutting off the actual truth and kind of compromising it to fit my own narrative because I wasn't putting God first like I thought I was putting God first. So I wasn't living what I thought I should. And so by us just going off on our own, we can create our own scars as well from just sin. And it's a reminder that my scars remind me too that I need to trust God when I might feel I could lead my own life. And remember, after leaving that relationship and having those miscarriages, it also left me feeling like I could comfort other people. And so there's this is the quote I wanted to read tonight. Make sure I can not mess it up. But Lisa Turkhurst, I believe is her name, if I said that right. She's wrote a lot of books because she's had that poor lady. If you've ever heard of her, read her stories, she's been through quite a bit. Actually learned more. I'm reading her other book, Forgiving What You Can't Forget. Mm-hmm. And she's had a lot of things. She's had scars in her life. Yes.
And it's funny because I feel like the people that go through the deepest hurts and have the deepest scars are the people that can speak life into people that have done that because they know exactly what you're feeling and they can look you in the eyes and say, I know how you feel because they've actually walked down that path.
Mm-hmm. And that's actually very similar to her quote was, these seasons of suffering are not for nothing. They will grow you, they will shape you, they will soften you. They will allow you to experience God's comfort and compassion, but you will find life-giving purpose and meaning when you allow God to take your painful experiences and comfort others. You'll be able to share a unique hope because you know exactly what it feels like to be them. So it really stirs up compassion. When you have scars, I mean, we can relate. I mean, Jesus. We can go to Jesus because he can say, me too, of his scars. And we can go to other people and say, well, me too. And I couldn't do that before if I wouldn't have gone through certain pains like a miscarriage. I never knew what that was like.
And you, like me, also had a stillborn baby.
Right, which was considered a miscarriage, but I delivered. So you get that pain of being on the floor with other women. And you talked about that in your last podcast. Yes. That's a horrible feeling, putting you up. I know I don't think they have other ways to do it, maybe, but it was rough because everyone else is expecting life and you're getting death in a sense, and like what you thought was going to be wasn't, and you're in pain and you're sad and everybody else is joy. And my nurse, she had good intentions, was like, you'll be here next year with a new baby. And it's just like, oh, that's not the best thing. That she had good intentions, so I can't, just fault her for that. But it was rough hearing something like that.
Yes, sometimes people try to encourage us and they don't have the right words.
But I definitely liked when I went back to college in the spring, probably it was like that spring, I think, after the breakup, and just seeing other people, I was able to see people through more of compassion and understanding. Sometimes I feel like I need more scars in my life recently or things to go through so I can gain that back, because I feel like you can kind of almost get hardened because you don't have scars to remind you where you've been through. You kind of lose, I think, sometimes compassion for other people because you start depending on yourself. Mm-hmm. You start forgetting that God's the one that got you through things instead of realizing, well, actually, if it wasn't for him, rescuing me, then I'd continue to get scars. If I wasn't learning from my scars, I'd be continuing to be hurt. And I remember helping a few girls. I mean, I don't know what my impact is on this point, but to talk about relationships with them, I was able to direct them to the truth. Tell them, hey, wait for someone, find the right person for God, wait for marriage, all those things that I couldn't tell them until I got those scars and learned for myself. And so I say compassion and remembering where God got you from is a good, what scars kind of help too.
I agree 100%. And I also believe that sometimes if we do not go through certain things, it's very easy to become judgmental and think, oh, well, I wouldn't do that, or why would they do that? And then once you actually step back and go through some of those things, it helps you to not have that judgmental spirit, because it's very easy to judge sometimes people going through things that you never went through. But boy, what a difference it makes, and how that judgmental spirit is immediately put to death once you've gone through the things that other people have gone through. It's very easy for you to, like you say, have compassion and empathy for them once you've been through it yourself.
I also think it gives you a passion to help them get through that, but from a state of love and grace rather than judgment. And because you don't want people to stay there either out of love, yes, but you approach them in a much more compassionate way rather than coming at them without a clue of what they're going through too.
Yes. So is there anything other than the compassion and the empathy that you learned from going through that? Anything else that you would want the listeners to know that you've learned from the different types of pains that you've gone through?
I would say just trusting God when you do, next time you do go through something, is trusting God first instead of my own thoughts and
our
abilities.
Ways are not always the best ways, that's for sure.
It's going to scripture first. I learned to go to him first. Not that I don't not do that now. I still fail and I still mess up in those areas, but I think my trust in God strengthens each time. And so absolutely, I think it's learned to go to him first and to trust what he says, even if it doesn't feel good or feel right to me, or if I want to go my own way. Knowing I should trust him first is something I've learned, because I've tried doing things my own way and it hasn't led down very good roads. So
never does.
When I leaned on him, I mean, as soon as because after that bad relationship, I also prayed to God. I went through that depression. And then I remember saying, God, I can't do this on my own. Like, I've tried and I obviously just mess up my own life when I do it. So as soon as I really did, and actually my life did that, where I prayed and I didn't get in relationships until I prayed about it. I didn't pursue it unless I felt God wanted it. I was married within a year. I found somebody. There was one guy I talked to before, my husband now, Nathaniel, and it was very short-lived because I prayed about it, had a weird vibe, red flag, right away, prayed. God removed him immediately. There was no hesitation. I felt good about it. And with Nathaniel, I prayed several times and God kept giving me good things. And I was like, oh, this guy is all good things. He kept checking off on my good things on my list. And so,
and now you have a wonderful husband and two beautiful sons. And nothing makes a mother's more happy and full of joy than to be able to see her daughter being loved well. And I'm so grateful that you found a man that loves you so well. Nothing makes my heart happier. Previous relationship you were in, I literally could picture myself hurting that boy. I mean, when you see somebody hurt your children, there's nothing worse than that. I'm sure as a mom now you can see why I was so angry at him for the things that he said and did.
I have to go after girls though.
What's
I have
that?
Sons. I got to go after the girls.
So as a parent, our deepest desire, speaking of parents, is to protect your kids from hurt and pain. But what happens if you are the source of some of the deepest pains your kids felt? This is a very difficult topic for me, but if my transparency and vulnerability can in some way help others, I'm willing to do just that. So, Ashley, what would you like to share about how your dad and my divorce affected you?
Well, we went through two, so I was real young, and then around, 18-ish. I would say it definitely has an impact no matter what age a kid goes through divorce, because a family unit is the security of children, really. I mean, when you have your mom and dad, you feel safe. You can trust God. But when it breaks up, you're kind of, feel like you're kind of lost in a weird void. And at the time, you were very distant. And I remember being kind of lonely because I think Dad moved out and you were gone more. And Kaylee kind of in my mind, she was kind of all over because she was kind of young. And Brandon was, I don't know if he was dating Rachel at the time.
Yes.
And so he was doing his own thing. And so I feel like it did affect me. I think I pursued things I shouldn't have for just loneliness, hanging out with the wrong crowds because I was bored, even just boredom I was a young 18-year-old, 20-ish when it first happened. And so just to kind of numb what's going on and just to keep busy, I think I did that. And so I remember it makes you question, will I ever get married or someone divorced me in 20 years, I mean, no matter how long you're with someone, will they change their mind? And so there's a lot of insecurity that can come from those divorce. And, as an adult, sometimes I think people forget that as you get older, you don't have to split home, but in a way you have split holidays. You have to make time for both parents, and you feel bad if you didn't visit your mom as long as you visited your dad, or your dad as long as your mom. So when you guys do things together, it helps. But I know sometimes it's awkward, and it can be weird sometimes, but it helps a little bit. So I think it's painful for a kid because it's security that kind of just falls apart even as an adult.
And I feel like you guys had a pretty secure life and up until that point.
For the most part, I'd say.
So I want to publicly, I know privately, I've apologized to you, and I apologize for the hurts that I've caused.
And I have forgiven you, and that's the thing. I think that's part of scars too, is if we don't learn to forgive people. I think part of it is you forgive other people is a huge part of removing scars. Because if you hold in, anger and bitterness towards someone, those scars don't heal. You just keep reliving that pain over and over again. So, I have no right to hold anything against somebody because God, I was forgiven. And so, I can't hold that against you. You're my mother too. And so I think you've also come a long way, and, showing that you feel sorry for the way you handled things, or for the divorce, or, so all those things. I mean, it helps when you make steps towards mending a relationship as well. And so I've forgiven you. Doesn't mean, the side effect, there's long-term effects to all our decisions and how it can make us feel, and anxiety at, holidays. Like I said, you guys have done a really good job about that. So that helps as well. But I've forgiven you.
And I think that for a lot of people, and especially a mother and father, probably, it's so much harder for us to forgive ourselves than it is for others to forgive us. And that's in all different types of forms. It's not just through divorce, but in most things, I think that it's at least for me, I have a very hard time forgiving myself for things. And a lot of times I lose sleep over it. Actually, I'll lay in bed and think about things that maybe I wish I wouldn't have done, or maybe that I would have done better. So it can actually haunt you, the decisions that you make. That's why I would encourage my viewers to always be very thoughtful about every decision you make. Not just thoughtful, but more importantly than that, prayerful. I mean, I feel like I was in a great relationship with God then to some degree, but nothing in comparison to where I am now. But I think what got me to the point to where I am now was one hurt after another hurt after another hurt, which now that I've gone through those things, I'm thankful for that because it has drawn me so close to God. And I don't know that without those specific hurts that I would have turned to God. So if our life is going perfectly and we don't really need God, then we don't learn to trust him. But it's in those deep hurts that our relationship becomes very intimate and close with God. And so even though those things hurt not just me, but others, I do feel that that was kind of God's way of getting my attention to get me on the right path to where I needed to get to where I could find out what my calling is and live that calling out, because we're never going to be completely satisfied in this life, no matter what we do, no matter what we're searching for. If we do not put Christ in the center of everything that we do, we're going to fall short every single time. True happiness does not come from somebody else trying to make us happy, but we all have that special spot in our heart that only God can fill. And until that spot is filled, we are constantly going to be looking for the next thing that's going to make us happy. Would you agree with that, Ashley?
Yeah, I would say thankfulness is a big one I kind of miss, is being thankful for those scars, because God brought you out of that, and he sanctified you basically in those moments.
Yes.
As well as, oh gosh, I forget actually the last, I was going to say it, but it's fine because you covered it well. So I'll just say I agree with you because I forget the second part.
I'd also like to just add really quick. So sometimes, like, I know for me, people that I know that maybe made decisions even in my own life as a child, you might want to think of somebody that did something that hurt you, and you might think, wow, they're bad. But what I've learned through my life as I've gotten older, that good people make bad decisions. It's just the part of life. We all struggle sometimes to make right decisions, and just because we make a bad decision doesn't mean that we can't be redeemed from it, and it also doesn't mean that we're not a good person because of that.
I will correct you there.
Okay.
None are good. We all fall short of the glory of God.
Okay.
So I think it's a reminder that we're not good, but that we can be redeemed and that he makes us good.
We're all filthy rags aside from him.
Exactly.
But I think that we can all certainly be healed. I know for a fact from every single hurt that we face. Jesus is always faithful to be there to pull us out of whatever situation it is. And I had a verse that I love, this Bible verse. It's Psalms 147:3. He healeth the broken in heart and bindeth up their wounds. How do you think God's healed your heart during that time, Ashley?
Anytime?
Any of those
times? I definitely felt comfort during those times. And I go to him, like you said, it's a reminder that nothing else in this world really satisfies or can fulfill you. People, things, hobbies, it's your parents' marriage. You can't rely on anything to give you security. And so I think knowing that I have God, no matter what I go through, that's a healing in and of itself.
Yes.
So.
Okay. And do you have any advice that you would give others that are facing, maybe there's a girl listening that is your age or even an older person that maybe their parents are going through a divorce, that you could give them some kind of advice to make it an easier transition for them?
That's a tough one. I think it depends on the ages they are. But I would say don't blame yourself. As a kid, we blame ourselves for our parents, what they go through, thinking maybe if I did this better, or I would have, told my parents this, or wouldn't have fought, my parents would still be together, or just not relying on what you bring to the table, realizing that your parents are separate people and they make their own decisions, I think helps. And then going to God, however that looks for them at what age, by, maybe getting them, if they're a parent, putting your kids with a group of Christians to surround them so they're influenced by Scripture. Because I think the more truth you put in your head during that time, the more you can be healed. And so if you surround yourself with people like I did, like at work and stuff, you get sidetracked from the truth and you just let lies go on and you just make bad decisions. So.
And we live in a busy world where there's so much going on around us. We got phones and social media and everything possible to sidetrack us in this world. I mean, it's just easy to get off track and get sidetracked from different things. I know I'll be trying to get my prayer time in and I'll be 10 other things will pop up that find myself doing before I actually do that. And I think that the reason that happens is because Satan does not want us getting our prayer time, because our prayer time is so important and it can literally change lives and it can heal hearts, and he does not want that. And so that's why we get deviated from that so often. I know undergoing the pain and suffering and hurt correlated to scars are not fun to encounter, and it certainly is not enjoyable. But oftentimes it is those very times that we draw closer to God and have our most intimate encounters with him. James 4:8 says, draw near to God and he will draw near to you. No, I'm sorry. That was Jeremiah 30:17. Well, 1 Peter 2:24 says, he himself bore our sin in his body on the tree, that we might die to sin and live to righteousness. By his wounds you have been healed. So not only do we have scars, but obviously Jesus has scars too. And he had to endure all kinds of pain, suffering, and hurt in order for us to have eternity with him. So Ashley, in closing, is there anything else that you would like to add?
I'd say you hit pretty much down the head. I mean, we have Jesus to go to. I think knowing that you have a reminder if he can heal you, reminders that to be thankful for where he's brought you from, and the reminders that he too knows your pain because he suffered as well. And don't forget to forgive others, because if you fester unforgiveness, that's actually a big wound you're going to carry around for a long time. And so to make sure to forgive those, because we actually have no right to withhold forgiveness from anybody.
In fact, the Bible says, if you cannot forgive others, I cannot forgive you. So that's a pretty bold statement. And when we don't forgive people, it's basically us poisoning our own system, because it's not hurting the person that we don't forgive.
It creates scars for other people as well.
Sure does. And it hurts you more than it hurts them. Well, thank you so much, Ashley, for joining this podcast today. I really enjoyed listening to your perspective on different things. And I just want all of my listeners to know that always remember that God will always be in the midst of any kind of hurt you have. I'm proof of that. I have been through lots of hurts, but I've never gone through any of them alone. Every time I've called out to him, he was always gracious. And he always came to my rescue. So remember, always smile through the tears, and God always has your back. Thank you and enjoy your night.